We are now recording.
Okay, so all commissioners are present, so I would like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, give me just a moment. We'll have a flag. All right, the flag should be up.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. So as I welcome our newest member, Jessica Lapp, welcome. We'll go ahead and call the roll.
Cody,
Here, and Union
Squattrito.
Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
good job. Squattrito,
Here, am I supposed to tell what county I'm from? When did this become a thing?
It is part of the amendment to the Open Meetings Act, and I think we did it last month. It basically, you need to say where you are. So say if you're in Union Township, say Union Township. If you're in Mount Pleasant, you say Mount Pleasant, and then Isabella County. If you're out of state, then you would add the state as well.
Okay, I'm here and I'm in Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Buckley,
I'm here. I'm in Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Fuller,
Here, Union Township.
Darren,
Here, Union Township.
Shingles,
Here, Union Township.
Lapp,
I'm in the city of Goshen, Elkhart County, state of Indiana.
and LaBelle.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
everyone present.
All right. So we last met on November 17th, and you have the minutes of the November 17th meeting. Are there any corrections to the November 17th meeting minutes? They looked very thorough to me.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion is by Fuller to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
So moved.
Support.
I think I heard Shingles first, so second by Shingles. Further discussion on the November 17th minutes. So we'll just do a voice vote or a hand wave. So all in favor, either say aye or wave or give a thumbs up.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I see none opposed, so motion carries. So minutes are approved. Next item is correspondence, board reports, and presentations. So first one is Clerk Cody, updates from Board of Trustees. Anything?
At our last board meeting, our regular board meeting, we had 2 public hearings. One was on the McGurk special assessment, and then the FY 2021 budget. Other updates. Jessica Lapp is our new member on the Planning Commission, as you all know now. And then I am going to continue to be the Board of Trustees representative. We also have Supervisor Milky is our new representative for the EDA and the Board of Review. And then we held 3 special meetings, 2 on the policy governance and 1 to go over the 2021 budget. That is all for now.
Questions for our representative from the Board of Trustees? Do you want to say anything about where things stand on our remaining vacancy on this board, on this commission? I mean, I can say it, but if you want to report it, that's fine too.
I believe that Supervisor Milky is going to choose someone at the January board meeting when the new term starts, because it would just be for, I believe, 1 month. So he just wanted to start somebody out fresh with a whole entire term, or maybe it was 2 months. I believe it's a month. So he was going to wait till January to start it.
I think he's also hoping to get some additional applicants, was my impression.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you. And then next one is Commissioner Buckley, updates from ZBA. Has the ZBA met since we last met?
We haven't met. I can't remember if we, if I was absent at the last meeting. I apologize for that short notice on that. But I can't remember if I gave an update at the last one that said we had taken an opportunity. I shouldn't say we haven't met. We did have, within the past couple of months, a training session that we did that we went through some materials as it pertains to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but we haven't met to deliberate on anything in, I don't know how long now.
Yeah, we received the report, I think, at our last meeting.
Yeah.
Approved it, and it indicated that it had been a slow year. And I believe isn't your January meeting canceled also? I was on the website today looking for something, and it looked like that's what it said.
I believe it is, isn't it, Rodney?
It is, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess that's probably a good thing.
We do have a potential application for the Board of Appeals, a variance request, but they did not get a complete application in time for the January meeting. So it's still not complete. So at this point, it's still just pending the possibility.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Any questions for Ryan? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on. You don't list sidewalks and pathways as a special one on this list. I know we're meeting with them in January. Is there anything to report, Mike?
No, we have not met. I think we meet in January, so.
Okay. All right. All right. Very good. Anything else that anyone has or is aware of that needs to either be corresponded or reported or presented? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is approval of the agenda. So we have a fairly full agenda tonight. We've got 5 new business items. And then the other business would be the continuing discussion of implementation of the master plan. Any changes to the agenda that anyone is aware of? Additions, concerns? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as prepared.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Buckley, second by Darren to approve our agenda as prepared. Further discussion? Once again, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Approval, aye. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none opposed, we'll declare that as being approved. So the next item is public comment. So at the front end of our meetings, we have a section of public comment which is open to items that are not on tonight's agenda. I'll just remind people that we have a public hearing coming shortly here. So that'll be dealt with in its own, at its own point in the agenda. So this is for comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If anyone would like to give such a public comment, we ask you to make that known to the host through the published instructions, and we will give you an opportunity to address the commission, and give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment is open at 7:10. No, I've never seen so many attendees before. We have a lot of attendees. All right. Well, seeing none that are indicating a desire to offer a public comment, we'll assume that folks are here for the agenda items. So we'll go ahead and close the public comment at 7:11. We're ready to move on to new business. The first item is a special use permit application, PSUP 20-02. Applicant is Malley Construction, and application for a contractor's yard at Packard and Airport Road. So I'll turn it over to Rodney and or Peter for an introduction, and then we'll move on to the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Everyone should have the application materials and our report in your packet. This is a public hearing for a contractor's yard, which is a special use, special land use in the I-1 zoning district. This is for an expansion of the existing Malley construction facility. They're currently located to the west of Packard Street at Airport Road. The proposal is to expand to land on the east side of Packard Street, south of Airport Road. And that's what generated this special use permit request. The project includes a gravel parking lot for outdoor storage of construction materials, use of an existing building on the site, cleanup of that building for indoor storage, and also some screening that is proposed to go along with that. As said, what we have on the agenda right now is for the special use permit application. There is a separate site plan application that will come up later on.
Very good, thank you. Special use permits require a public hearing. Public hearing is published in the paper. The property owners within a certain radius are notified. Presumably that's all been done. And so the purpose of this is to give the public an opportunity to comment on the request, right, and for us to be able to hear that comment. I want to point out, as I usually do, that the applicant will have their own separate opportunity to address the commission and stand for questions. So the public hearing really isn't designed to give the applicant an opportunity to speak. It's designed to give the public an opportunity to speak. So we'll ask folks, once the public hearing is open again, if you want to be recognized, activate the raise hand function, and the host will acknowledge that, and we will make it possible for you to speak and be heard. We want to give everyone who wants to speak an opportunity to speak. So we'd ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once everyone who wants to speak has had an opportunity to speak, we'll consider recognizing people for additional comments. Please address your comments to the commission rather than the applicant or anyone else. And so the public hearing on special use permit application 20-02 is open at 7:14. So again, please activate the raise hand button if you want to give a public comment.
We have a couple of people that are on phones. So for anybody on the phone, you can use the star key and then the number 9 key. Star 9 will raise your hand that way. So the first person, it's a phone number that ends in 404. I'm going to invite them to speak. They're unmuted.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. This is Chad Karstensen, address 4585 East Airport Road. I'm one of the owners of the Advanced Concrete LLC shop back there.
Okay. Please proceed.
Just like to take a minute to, so the special use permit of the yard, I guess, isn't so much of a concern, but is there the possibility, or what I understand, they're talking about fencing off or barricading the road so that we would have to access our property via Belmont versus Packard. Is that correct, or am I misunderstood?
I think that is part of the application. It's one of the things we're going to be discussing.
Okay, so this is our chance to speak about that, or?
Correct, correct.
is that
Express any concerns that you have. We're listening.
Okay, so my basic concern is I live in Clare. You know, I access my facility from the first Mount Pleasant exit. It's super convenient, on and off. If this road is barricaded off, we're essentially cut off and funneled up Belmont, which to my understanding is closed to truck traffic. We operate out of medium duty trucks, skid steers, heavy equipment. The only other way would be to funnel out Isabella, which is probably one of the worst intersections in town to have to deal with as a contractor that runs big trucks and equipment, especially at the hours of day that we have to access it. It also cuts us off. It's super inconvenient for those of us back there. I understand that it's not a big deal if you're not in our particular spot, but I'd like to take this chance to have my voice heard about it. I'm all for the big equipment and the expansion of his yard. However, outside of being Mr. Malley, I don't see how this benefits anyone else in the handful of landowners that are back there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Yes,
your
sir.
comments. Other folks who want to offer a public comment? We had another phone come in. Rodney, do you want to repeat the instruction for those who are on the phone?
Yes, for anyone on the phone to raise your hand and indicate you'd like to speak, hit the star key and then the number 9 key. Star 9 will raise your hand. For anyone else, if you're on a computer, down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a raise hand button visible that you can click on.
Other public comments on this application? Public hearing is still open.
We did receive one letter, and typically, unless that person is here, I read any letters that we get into the public hearing. So I can do that after anybody else has already spoken.
Well, I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand or hitting their star 9 key. So if you want to read it while we're waiting, I think you could probably do that.
Okay. The letter that we received, the one dated 12/7/2020, this letter is written in response to parcels 30-001-07 and 40-002-00 being permitted as a special use condition to use such property as a contractor's yard per the zoning ordinance definition below. Contractor's yard, a site on which a building or construction contractor stores equipment, tools, vehicles, building materials, and other appurtenances used in or associated with building or construction. A contractor's yard may include outdoor or indoor storage or a combination of both. As a property owner of parcel 40-004-00, which adjoins parcel 40-002-00 on two sides, I believe the misuse of this property in question does directly affect the value of all the properties within the buffer area. Though zoning does allow use as a contractor's yard for a property zoned I-1, any use beyond what is defined above could be viewed as negative impact to the adjoining properties. Uses such as landscaping operations, concrete or asphalt paving, bulk storage or junkyards would be considered uses for areas zoned I-2. Please take all property owners' interests located in the buffer area into consideration prior to allowing uses permitted that are more suitable in an I2 zone area. Barry Van Buskirk.
Okay, thank you. All right. So again, call to attendees for anyone wanting to offer a public comment on this application.
We have a raised hand from another phone call. This phone number ends in 222.
Okay.
And so I've unmuted them. Phone number 222 is ready to speak.
Hello, can you hear us?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I muted them.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. This is Mike Curtis with Advanced Concrete at 4585 Airport Road. We're right across the road from Malley's property. And to me, I think it's a big safety hazard if they block that road off, considering the ambulance is seconds away right now, and if they have to go all the way around to get to somebody at our shop, could be 10 minutes away. So it's a pretty big safety concern for me. And the property value, of course, is going to go down.
Is your main
Hello?
concern go ahead. Yeah, we hear you. Is your main concern the blocking off of the road?
Yes, the road blocking off.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate your comments. Thanks for giving them.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other public comments? Going once? Going twice? Okay, well, seeing none others, we'll go ahead and assume that everyone who's wanted to comment has had the opportunity to do so. I want to thank folks for giving us some public comments, both by the phone here and also in writing. And we'll be using those comments, taking them into account when we move on and consider this application. So public hearing on the application is closed at 7:24. So next item on this is updates from the applicant and staff. So before I turn it over to the applicant, anything else that Rodney or Peter want to add to this?
No, I appreciate Peter taking care of that, the letter that came in. You have our report dated December 8th. The report has listed in it the various criteria for consideration of a special use permit and our comments, and we're happy to answer any questions as we go along. You also should have the set of draft motions that you've asked us to prepare that give you the various options for approval conditions, denial, and postponement. And so, as I said, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along with the report.
Okay. So I see Mr. Malley, and I don't know if there's anyone else. So anyone who's representing this project, I guess, if you want to bring them over, that would be fine. If it's just Mr. Malley, that's okay. If he's got anyone with him, I don't know whether he does or not.
I've had Mr. Malley come in as panelist. He should be with us momentarily.
I'm here.
Yep, there we go.
Okay. So we normally give an applicant an opportunity to kind of just give a brief, kind of introduction or whatever you'd like to say with regard to your application, what you're doing, why you want to do it, anything you want us to be aware of. I mean, we've obviously looked at the printed material, but if there's anything you'd like to say, and then of course, we'll have you stand for questions.
Well, I appreciate all the effort on everybody here. I guess I'd like to have a little response to a couple of the questions and or complaints from neighbors, if I can. First of all, Mr. Van Busker has had his property for sale for 3-4 years. And I've got the letter also with him almost stating that I need to buy his property if I want to move forward. I believe our project, when we're done, is going to look very, very nice compared to with your expectations as far as the screening and zoning that you want done there, as far as tree planting and so on and so forth. I sure can't believe that our construction yard, by cleaning up, taking out old brush and old trees and knock down trees and garbage, is going to do any worse than Mr. Wing's junkyard. And Skip is a great neighbor. Can never say anything bad about Mr. Wing. Great guy, but our project will look 100% better than that. So to state that that's should be a concern. My yard is kind of, as I should say, ridiculous, I guess. So that concerns me a little. I guess, the man's had the property for sale for quite some time, hasn't been able to sell it. So it almost comes down to extortion to me. So we'll leave that one. As far as the second, me and Rodney and Peter had a meeting, Zoom meeting, roughly 3-4 weeks ago, somewhere's in there. We discussed the road. The road is actually not, I didn't think was going to be in this special use at this point in time. We was more concerned about getting the parking lot built and storage area built and everything cleaned up, and leave the road intact, because I know there is a lot of concerns. So really, I wasn't pursuing going forward with the road at this time. But for my response on that, so that everybody is aware, first of all, them houses on Airport Road was built in the early 70s to late 60s without that road there. That road was built by Mr. Wing in 1980. He's had numerous calls to both Isabella County and Union Township to take the road over, and nobody will at this point in time. Nobody has had any desire to take the road over. Mr. Wing, up till when I purchased my property roughly 4 or 5 years ago, was maintaining that road, and he was getting very, very frustrated with maintaining that road. So that everybody knows now, I grade the road, I gravel the road, I plow the road, I brine the road, and I cut the grass alongside the road. That is private property. That road that goes through private property. That is my property. As you can look in your GIS map, and I had the surveyor out there, this acre of ground that's in between us butts right to my property, to my existing 8 acres or 7.5 or whatever it is. So I was hoping that could be a discussion in the future. At this point in time, like I say, we was not looking to shut the road down. Right now, we're looking more or less to get the parking lot built. I do have some concerns on the road that private property, number one, and number two, and I haven't really consulted too much with a lawyer, but if somebody gets hurt on that piece of property, who's liable for it? And so that's a concern that we're going to work with in the future at this point in time. So really right now, what we're looking to do, clean up, do our screening that we want, that the township would like per your zoning rules, get just a storage yard for our excess equipment and excess trucks coming in and out in the future. A lot of times we have a lot of equipment that might be out for all summer long, and if a job gets completed, we have to have a place to bring them back to till the next job. So we, just like everybody this day and age, we're all growing. I spent a lot of time to purchase this property back when Mr. Woodruff was your zoning administrator then, and helped me get this property under control for what we're doing. And of course, we all know that it was limited acreage or property available for what for our type of business. So we've went there. We thought that everything should be not too bad of a deal, but, you know, to keep expanding. That's kind of why we bought the property, and knowing that there's vacant ground around us. So the road is something that we can address in the later future. But more or less, we're looking for the, you know, the storage facility parking lot.
Okay, thank you. I'll just say that I think that although the road issue is not part of the special use application per se, I mean, it got in the air because it's shown that way on your site plan. So
Oh.
I think that's why people are, you know, and why it was in the staff report and why it's being talked about.
I see. I guess I got, you know,
The site plan was created before the conversation with Peter and Rodney about the road. It was sent to them for the pre-approval. We had the discussion about the road, and at that point, wasn't sure where that was going to go, but the main focus was getting the parking lot and the grading and so on and so forth done on the property itself.
Okay, who was just talking?
that was
Jacob Malley.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, all right.
So I
Right.
guess we can have some discussion on that road. You know, it is, first of all, it's private property. If we want to have some discussion on that, the county does not want to take it over, the last we knew. Nobody wants to maintain the road. It's left up to Malley Construction to maintain the road. The houses and the property that is on Airport Road was there 20 years before the road was. So we are all fortunate that MMR is right next to our property. But I guess what's the difference? That's having somebody on the south end of Mount Pleasant for MMR. And not to say that they're going to be in their facility to come to anybody on Airport Road in the future. There's 3 places on Airport Road, 3 or 4. I think there's 3 residents, and then Mr. Curtis's Advanced Concrete. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Number 2, before I purchased all this property, I spoke with Mr. Peter Gallant and told him the situation. And I do understand that, you know, we didn't have anything in front of us, but Peter said, well, it's a private property. I guess it's yours. So, you know, that's kind of way we understood with this project. I will tell you that I paid as much for the 1 acre as almost as what I paid for the 7 acres next to it. So just because I wanted to include everything, you know, for me, that gives me ballpark of 14, 15, 16, 17 acres of industrial property in Mount Pleasant or Union Township is a big plus. It's all connected. So so that's kind of why we was looking at growing our facility and just giving us some, you know, getting away from our growing pains as far as stacked on top of each other. So.
Okay, thank you. So the applicant is here, and so it's really open for commissioners to address and ask questions if you have them.
Hey, Brad, Doug LaBelle here. Just a question on the current property that you have on Park Place. That's I-1 as well. Do you have a special use permit on that property currently?
I guess I don't know what that would be. Must be because I have, you know, I purchased that land and built a shop, went through the same thing we're doing here. So whether they consider that a special use back then, I'm going to say that's 4 to 5 years ago when I done that. So you know, 2/3 of my facility is all new. So it's went all through your planning commission and everything that you know, township has wanted.
Okay. Thank you for that. Rodney, would you know, because I'm just not aware, I'm just more posing the question if it's, you know, the harmonious issue, which I believe it would be. I'm just curious if that currently has a special use permit on that property.
I don't know right offhand. As Mr. Malley said, the project has received site plan approval previously. The change to the new ordinance brought with it a few changes related to land uses. That may be part of the result here. I don't know, Peter, do you have any thoughts on this subject?
So in the previous ordinance, it was listed in both I-1 and I-2 as a permitted use. It was listed as, in the old ordinance, it would state storage facilities for building materials, sand, gravel, contractors, equipment. Those were permitted uses by right in both the I-1 and the I-2. In the new zoning ordinance, it is written as a special use for the I-1, permitted use for the I-2. So there's a change, difference between the two zoning ordinances.
Perfect. So is it fair to say that the property that he purchased under the old ordinance is kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of grandfathered in that is a permitted use and a special use permit is not needed?
Right. He does not need a special use permit for his existing facility.
Perfect. Just trying to clarify that because he's currently using that as he would for this other property that he's using a special use permit. So I'm just trying to convey that it would be harmonious with the area because he's currently using it over here with a property that he's already using as a contractor's yard. The property that he's in front of us tonight about would be harmonious if it was granted. That's all I was trying to convey. Thank you.
Alex?
Yeah, I almost feel that having discussions with the road, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves because we're discussing the special use permit on the property right now. Does this property and this special use fit the area? Whether or not there's a road that goes through it or not, I don't think we should be considering whether his site plan, which is the next item we're going to talk about, has a road closure.
So we have two different standards in our report. You see there are 7 standards for special use permits that are listed in section 14.03 of the zoning ordinance, and 2 of those standards have application related to the road. One specifically, it says that the proposed special use conforms to all applicable requirements or standards of this ordinance and other township ordinances. This ordinance, this road as a private road is subject to our private road ordinance, and our report addresses whether closure of the road would be consistent with that ordinance. That was standard number 5. Standard number 7 says the impact of the special use will not exceed the existing or planned capacity of public or municipal services or infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, police, fire, protection services, refuse disposal, municipal water, sewage, other utilities, drainage facilities, or public or private wells. The proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for services or infrastructure that would be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. This is the other one where the closure of the road could affect basically the municipal services or infrastructure, in particular, as was discussed during the public hearing, emergency services and their ability to access the properties along Airport Road in an expeditious manner in the event of an emergency situation. So it is completely appropriate to be looking at the road item as part of that. And Mr. Malley has indicated that he's not intending to close the road. And so with that in mind, that makes this question fairly easy.
But isn't it true that whether the road is closed or not is approval of the special use permit doesn't guarantee that the road gets closed?
Well, you can, as part of any special use permit, you can set standards or conditions on the approval or recommendation, in this case, of approval of a special use. And so that's what we've done in our report. Is we've simply noted that the closure of the road would not be consistent with the private road ordinance, and it would not be consistent, as we see, with condition number 7 related to the emergency services. And so we simply recommended in our recommendation on the last page of our report that if you do decide to recommend an approval, simply to include a condition that the closure be removed from the site plan.
But if if the special use permit, and I'll recognize Ryan right after this, if the special use permit were approved without that condition, one still has to have the site plan approved. And at that point, one could say, something about the road.
Well, you could, but in this case, he is proposing a special use permit that would cover the land that the road is running through, as Mr. Malley mentioned, he does own this land.
Okay.
And so it is, I would recommend that the road issue be addressed as part of the special use permit.
All right, I understand. Ryan?
Well, that was my question. I think Rodney has basically covered it, but my question was whether or not the special use permit that was being sought was included just the parcel in question across the road, or if it included the linear footage and the road itself. I don't think we can ignore the special use permit or the road issue if it encompasses the road as well. So if that's, it sounds like Rodney is saying that that's built into it. So I think we have to address it now.
Okay, fair enough.
Can I get it?
Who was just starting to speak? Was that?
This is Brad. This is Brad. Can I have a
Okay.
response on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess this is kind of throwing me for a loop to a situation here. My original plan was to shut the road down, incorporate that yard altogether. That is my property. I pay the taxes on that property to you people, to the township. I maintain the road. It's private property. Nobody maintains it but me. So my original meeting with Rodney and Peter, when they said that they had some concerns about me shutting that road down, that I said, okay, we'll leave the road alone for now and address everything on the east side of that property going eastbound. But if we're going to bring this road into our factor, that's my property. I maintain it. It's private property. If Mr. Wing built that road for access to that 1 acre that is there, never was a concern about going all the way to the airport road. Second of all, there is another access into our facility on the west side of my property. There's a paved road that goes right to airport that is from, excuse me, I don't know my exact dimensions. I'm going to say it's roughly 600 foot down the road is another road that goes through our facility that's off of airport road. So I guess me coming into this situation, I in turn, like I stated, I thought we was only doing the parking lot area, was leaving the road like it is. But if we're going to state that we're only going to get an approval on with me keeping that road open for the other parcel, then that's unacceptable to me. That's my responsibility for that road. If somebody comes through there, hits a pothole, turns their car over and gets killed, who's going to be responsible for them? That's private property. I've already argued this point. It's mine. That's why I bought it. I maintain it. I plow it. I'm going to be done plowing it. I'm going to be done maintaining it. Only to my portion that I got to take care of. The county does not want to have anything to do with it. It does not meet a county spec road. Mr. Fuller, that takes to make a county spec road, and that road does not meet it. It would be very, very costly to make that road meet a county spec road for everybody to use. I have a concern with, there's a tremendous amount of traffic that comes up and down that road for no reason whatsoever. And I have roughly, 70, 80 people that work for me with 20 some gravel trains coming in and out of there, that my guys have to have safety because of everybody coming up and down through there for no reason. There's 3 houses on that road that people live in. And besides Mr. Curtis and his concrete company. And so very, very big concern of mine with leaving the road the way that it is. Like I say, my concern was to get the property under, to get my additional contractor's yard east of the road built. Leave the road alone for now. But if it's going to be pertaining that I'm not going to shut the road down, then we can stop now, because that will be something in the future that I have to address, and who's going to be taking care of the situation, because it's not going to be me. So.
Okay, I'll recognize Ryan for a comment.
So, Mr. Malley, can I just confirm, I'm ready at any time to go into more of a deliberation, because I do have questions about the private road ordinance and kind of what the implications are to that in general. But Mr. Malley, can if I can summarize your take on this, I think what I'm hearing from the rest of the planning commissioners is that they're open to the idea of having a conversation about the special use permit, and probably generally open to providing that special use permit across the road. But is it is what you're telling the planning commission that if we do exclude the closure of that road, that you are not interested in seeking the special use? Or is that an acceptable outcome for you? That if we prohibit the road closure, but approve the special use, is that an acceptable outcome for you?
No, it is not. We'll probably have to go, because at this point in time, if we can leave the road closure out of the situation, that is still a situation that we need to discuss in the future, I'm fine with that. Moving forward, just taking care of our contractor's yard. But if we're going to, if it comes through right now and everybody decides, as far as your board decides that the only way that this is going to get approved is because I don't close that road, then we're going to have to stop the meeting, and I'm going to have to, I have to have some legal advice on this. I mean, I guess I'm lost for words how everybody thinks that I'm going to maintain the road, pay the property taxes on the road, have it a private road on private property that's my property, that is actually taking up half of my acre that I'm paying taxes on, and then be liable for that road. That to me is unrealistic.
I think that everybody recognizes that concern. Procedurally, I think if I'm assessing the situation correctly, procedurally, what the issue that we're running into is that if we do not, if we have concerns about the closure of the road in the future, even if it's not being closed tomorrow or the next day, then if we fail to prohibit that and require that you would have to come back in front of the planning commission at a later date to request the ability to close the road, then what we're doing is granting permission to close the road today, whether you choose to do it or not. Am I correct, Rodney?
That is correct, because it is on the plans Mr. Malley has presented. If Mr. Chair, is it all right if I ask the applicant a quick question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Mr. Malley, am I correct in understanding that you have withdrawn the request to close the road? You simply want to keep your options open for some future time when you might make that request again. Is that correct?
Well, yes, to a certain extent. My concern in this meeting, and I got to apologize because I believe what had happened with our survey gentleman, that Schaefer's there, we started with this project, then we had your meeting, me and Rodney and Peter, and that's when we discussed that, you guys didn't think that I should shut the road down, and I told you I had some concerns for liability, and so that's why I thought, and I guess I got to apologize on our end, I thought that we was just concerning with the additional lot and nothing to do with the road at this time. So the road is a concern of mine in the future. I want to move forward and build my contractor's yard on my property that I bought, leave the road like it is, figure out what my liabilities are with my legal team, and decipher and bring that back to you at a later date. And we was just going to leave it as it was for now. So that's where I thought I originally thought that's what this meeting was tonight. So, but I guess if it pertains to road, then we're going to have to scrap everything and start all over again, unfortunately.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just a thought related to the special use permit. Mr. Malley, would it be fair if the planning commission were to include let's call it a finding, basically as part of any recommendation on a special use permit, the planning commission can identify relevant facts or conclusions related to the project that are important. And so maybe instead of a condition, which is essentially what we've recommended in a report, would it be accurate if the planning commission said something like the planning commission acknowledges that Mr. Malley will be removing the private road closure from the site plan for this project?
Yeah, that would work for me, and that would be something that we could, that we're all gonna have to entertain in the future. And I just can't, you know, I need some legal advice on there on our end, which, like I say, yes, if we exclude it, then we could look at it at a later date.
So I guess just for the planning commission, then in our recommendation, we had two conditions. One was simply that the final site plan be required. The first one essentially was a condition that the road shall be closed. I think it would address the issue if you simply, as I said, something to the effect of the planning commission acknowledges that Mr. Malley will be removing the private road closure from the site plan. That's a simple statement of fact that you've heard tonight, and it would address the issue for now. And doing that Mr. Malley could bring it up in the future when he chooses to, but it would address the issue for now that the road would not be closed as part of this project.
And then,
Yeah.
Rodney, if we were to proceed, Rodney, with an approval of the special use and then move on to the site plan, we could also reinforce that there as well, that there would be the removal of the road closure from the site plan as well. And so that way in the future, at any point, if there's a desire to close it, there's going to be a need to come back to the planning commission anyways.
Right, that's correct.
So is that accurate? You mentioned a private road ordinance. I guess my only question would be, if all of that is done, does he still have to obtain the township's approval in one form or another to close that road?
Yes, if he were to come back in the future and wish to close the road, he would have to obtain township approval for that. As I said, we do have a private road ordinance that this road is regulated under that ordinance, and you know, if any expansion of his facility would require site plan approval, so he would be coming back to you at that time.
Well, what if he just wanted to close the road and not have the road, but wasn't making any other changes to his property? Does that still come to us, or is there some other office that would handle that type of request?
It would still be governed by the private road ordinance, and he'd still be subject to those requirements.
But does that come to us, or does that come to someone else?
That is a good question. I don't recall. Peter, do you recall a private road project?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't need an answer right now for us to proceed, but I just want to make sure I understand, because, you know, I think he's, you know, being cooperative to the extent that he's understands your concern and wants to move this forward, but he's not making any sort of commitment for how long he's going to want to leave that road open. So I just wanted to make sure I understood what the procedure would be when he reaches that point.
I have a quick question on that. What is the, first of all, my understanding with Mr. Wing, my neighbor that built the road, that was established in the 80 or the early 80s, quite some time after every house on Airport Road was built, 20 plus years after. He's been to the township numerous times, and he's been to the road commission numerous times. There's been no permits, no approvals, and nobody wanting to show any interest in helping with any effort on maintaining the road. Nobody wants to have anything to do with it. It is on private property, which is my property. So I guess I don't understand what private road specifications it would fall under in the township's rules. You know what I'm saying there? where do we come up with it? Just because there's a trail down through somebody's property is all of a sudden going to be somebody's road. With no permits, no access, no nothing from that anybody's approved. It's never been to any of you guys' commissions or the county's commissions or anything like that. So I guess that's got a concern. But as excuse me, as you just stated, I'd like to move forward with the development on the east side, leave the road in place, not touch it, and get us some legal advice to know where we're setting on our end and decipher. And then we can put a package together if we think that it can be shut down or whatever we can do. I guess there's a lot of gray area here between the response from you people to what I believe and others believe. So, I just think we probably need to table that portion of it and look at it in the future.
Okay, thank you. So I want to move us, I want us to eventually move into our deliberation. So are there any other questions at this time for the applicant? Lisa?
So you're saying Mr. Wing built that road, but it's on your property. Is there any kind of easement or anything drawn up for it, or?
No easement whatsoever. Mr. Wing used to own the property, and Mr. Wing still owns the property to the south of, that's part of the road that's south is Mr. Wing's road still. He does not maintain any of that. Mr. Wing owned the acre of ground. I bought it from a man by the name of Dan Earns, the acre that's between the two 8-acre parcels. And that road was designed to go back to that acre of ground. It was 1 acre that Mr. Wing sold to Mr. Earns. So that's kind of how that road got built to that 1 acre. And Mr. Wing put the building up that is there. It's an older storage building only, pretty rough old growth. So Mr. Wing put that up, and in order to access that building, he built that road back to it. So
does he have an easement? No easement?
No easement.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I see there's a sanitary sewer running down through there. Is there an easement for that?
No. And I think, Alex, that only services, we're not sure, that out my back gate, my east gate, is where my my lead is. And there's a lead there that I'm tied to with my building. And there was a lead in the ditch line on the east side that was for the storage building that was there, was my understanding.
Yeah, your plan shows a 12-inch sanitary sewer, so I was wondering if that was a major outlet for something back there or what.
It does extend beyond the property. It does go all the way through the property.
That goes all the way to Airport Road, does it?
It does.
It does. And this deadhead's there, does it, or?
No, it connects into the air system at airport.
Oh, with no easement.
Well, that is a site plan item that we've asked for, is to go back and look, because things happen, but I cannot imagine a 12-inch sewer was put in without an easement.
Yeah.
But we'll find out.
Yep, exactly. We can't find one, so but it's hard to tell when that was done. So.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I guess I want to ask one real quickly to go back to the other comment that was offered, and you addressed it to some extent in your opening statement, but just in general, what's going to be stored on there, both in the building and then outside? Are there going to be huge piles of, dirt or what have you, or is it, can you just give a general description of what you're likely to be storing?
Sure. Mostly there will be some piles of dirt, nothing too serious. At this point in time, when we started doing a little bit, so we have some screen topsoil that will be stacked up, and then some gravel maybe, but very doubtful that there's going to be that much piles. It's more going to be for excess equipment to come and get parked over there when between jobs. So in pickups and a little bit of, we have quite a few people that work for us and, for our trailers and different small trailers that haul equipment and stuff like that. Just need a little more room. So, but it should look better than what we are now because we're in fact, we're kind of cramped where we're at. So, and that's kind of why we're into this situation.
Okay. And then again, I don't want to start mixing the site plan into this, but in the site plan right now, anyway, it shows the fence in, along airport because it shows that as being part of what was conceived at that time. If we're backing off from that and going back to, not dealing with the road for now, if you want that entire thing fenced in, then you're going to have to bring the fence down. What is it, Packard? Is that what it's called?
That's correct. Yes, I have to come down on the east side of Packard Road if I decide to fence the whole thing in. Yes.
Yeah, and that's okay.
If we decide to, yep. When it comes to that point, yes. So.
Right. Okay. So other questions? I mean, he's not going to go away. So if we have other questions, we can bring him back in. But I do want to transition from the back and forth to our actual deliberations. So last call on questions for Mr. Malley. Okay, so not seeing any, then I'll just ask you to kind of hang on and we'll proceed to our deliberation of the special use permit request.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So as Rodney pointed out, and as you have in your packet, there's the list of the 7 standards. There used to be 10, and we used to go down them individually and comment on them. We can still do that. It's a shorter list this time, but we want to make sure that we are, that everyone has an opportunity to give their opinions, and that we are building a documentation for what the ultimate decision will be, which will be a recommendation to the township board. So the first one is just confirming that the proposed use is a special use in the zoning district. That is correct. The second one is the location, design activities, processes, etc. Will not be hazardous, detrimental, injurious to the environment or the public health, safety, or general welfare by reasons of traffic, noise, vibration, smoke, etc., etc. Any comments on that one? Jump in if you have comments. The third one is the special use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner compatible with adjacent uses of the surrounding area and the intent of the zoning district.
I think it complies with that.
Okay. Any thoughts to the contrary? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any. The special use location and character is consistent with the general principles, goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted master plan. I believe the future land use map, that area is industrial and job growth, that type of thing. Proposed special use conforms to all applicable requirements or standards of this ordinance or other township ordinances.
Bill, I'd like to have a better understanding of the, we're on number 5, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'd like to have a better understanding of the private road ordinance. And is this the appropriate time to have that conversation, or should we wait till we get through the whole list?
No, I mean, I think I would raise your question now and then we can see where it takes us.
Well, given the fact that we're talking about if we proceed with an approval of this special use, we're talking about citing a finding of fact, I suppose, acknowledging that the applicant is plans to remove the road closure from the site plan. I'm just curious, and I want to better understand, and maybe Rodney can give us some more detail, just a better understanding of what the applicant is obligated to in terms of the private road ordinance. I mean, I can appreciate his concerns that he has in terms of maintenance and other issues. So I'm just kind of curious. I think that the special use still hinges a little bit on that, even if we're saying, yep, we're going to remove that till a later date. I just want to understand what types of issues we're going to be discussing if it does come to pass that that road is to be closed or requested.
Well, the private road ordinance was, as you see there, it's an adopted ordinance 2000-09, which means it was adopted in the year 2000. It's a fairly simple ordinance. I did go back and take a peek at it. It's an administrative process. There's no planning commission action. There's simply requirements for certain construction permits, and so it would be handled through an administrative permit process to develop a private road. There are certain standards that apply. In our report, we noted a couple of them. One that as it says there, all properties served by the private road shall provide adequate access for emergency vehicles. That's directly related to our conversation here. The other item I pointed out is that there is no provision for closing a private road that's subject to this ordinance. So that, as I said, there's no option for the township to authorize a closure of the road as is written right now. Beyond that, there are certain requirements that apply related to providing easement and addressing maintenance of the road. Essentially, Mr. Malley is covering those. He's indicated there's no easement there. As said, that's an item that we would want to get confirmation on. But the ordinance does require an easement for a private road. And so as far as our process is concerned, there was a 66-foot wide right of way essentially that the private road is required to have. And so all of our regulations related to setbacks and other issues would be addressed in relation to that easement location around the road. As I said, the requirements are fairly straightforward. It simply says that that it has to meet certain basic requirements for design, and it does indicate that it can be brought into the public road system, but obviously it has to meet the public road standards of the county for that. And there's some language about naming the road and application fees and such like that.
So, thank you, Rodney. And I guess I'm more curious about, you mentioned earlier, I mean, we're not talking about creating a private road. We're talking about the potential of eliminating a private road. And you mentioned that there's no provision in our ordinance that covers that. So I guess my question, and maybe I'm getting a little bit off tangent here because I'm trying to understand the pressure that the property owner is up against, that who actually owns the private road, is if there's no provision for closing it, then is there anything? Mr. Malley has a private road that he acquired through the purchase of an adjacent parcel of real estate, and is it the township's view based on ordinance that Mr. Malley has an obligation to maintain that road? Or if Mr. Malley were to allow that road to fall into disrepair because he simply doesn't want to spend money on a road for public use, does the township have a recourse to have it maintained? I guess what I'm asking is that if we don't have a provision for closing a road, what else is there to give guidance to the applicant in terms of what his options are to either maintain or to not maintain the road, and how he goes about seeking the closure?
This would be my suggestion. Mr. Malley has indicated he's taking the issue off the table for this particular project. In our meeting we had internally with Mr. Malley, I suggested that we have some ongoing conversations about the future of that road, and quite frankly that we bring into the conversation some of the other businesses that are over there that are on other roads that may need some help long term. It is an industrial area. It's one of the few industrial areas with vacant land in the township. That makes it a pretty important piece of ground over there, because we don't have a lot of space to have an employment center type development like Mr. Malley is doing, or warehouses or other types of industrial development that would be beneficial to the community. In order to have that kind of development, you do need to have solid roads. You already heard from the folks that run the concrete business that that they need to have roads that are a Class A road, essentially, to be able to run trucks in and out of. So I think there's room to have that conversation with Mr. Malley, with the other businesses over there, and perhaps look at finding a solution long term. But that's not really one we can address tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to press the point one more time, Rodney, and if you tell me you don't want to talk about it anymore, I'll respect that. But my question is, simply put, is Mr. Malley obligated to maintain a private road and to bear the burden, the cost burden associated with that?
Okay. Mr. Malley has purchased land that has a private road running through it. We have a private road ordinance. It is not part of the zoning ordinance. There's no grandfathering in. All private roads are subject to it, whether they were built before the ordinance or after. They're subject to those basic requirements, which include maintenance, which include easement, which include some other provisions. Beyond that, I'm going to say that the area you're getting into is a legal question.
Okay.
So all I can tell you is what the ordinance says.
Okay.
And the ordinance says that it's a private road and it's subject to it, and it does have certain provisions that apply. As I said, I think that the best way to handle this is simply for Mr. Malley and I to talk, and as I said, bring some of the other businesses in and see if we can come up with a creative solution that can address the concerns all around, and ensure that there's good access, ensure that, quite frankly, that there's better roads in there, that so we may be able to get even some additional industrial development in that area that's intended for it.
All right.
Thank you, Rodney, and I appreciate your response, and I apologize for pressing the point. I just, for my own edification, I'm trying to understand what all the factors are. So I do appreciate the response, and what you're suggesting makes sense.
Okay.
All right. So before I recognize Doug LaBelle, who's had his hand up, I think what I'm hearing is that as long as the thing is moved over and it's just the parking lot on the land, we're at status quo on the road, and that's going to have to be sorted out through this other process. Doug, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just the only other item that Rodney didn't cover in that wonderful description, though, Rodney, of the private road ordinance is liability that Mr. Malley brings up. I mean, if it's a private road, I mean, and I'm responsible for it. I can't do with it what I want, but yet I have to maintain it and do all these things. I'm liable for something if something were to happen. So that would be a major concern of mine that I can certainly understand Mr. Malley's concern. So that would be, add that to the list of items to discuss and find out how that is addressed if something were to happen, unless you know the answer to that.
No, I'm sure Mr. Malley has said Mr. Malley has legal counsel. I'm sure that he has talked to that legal counsel before he purchased the property. The road was there, but this is really the case for any private road. If you live in a neighborhood, a subdivision, or a rural area that your house is on a private road that you share maintenance with and share ownership with several other properties, you have ownership of that road, and you take on some liability related to that. As I think long term, the solution is, as I said, will come from conversation with Mr. Malley and with the other businesses along there, and see if we can come up with a solution that will address it. And as I said, from an economic development perspective, putting on that hat, make that land more attractive to additional industrial development, because it's certainly the right spot for it.
Okay. So to go back to the list, keeping in mind that the road itself is not part of the part we're considering approving. Number 6, the approval of special use location will not result in a small residential or non-residential area being substantially surrounded by incompatible uses. It's all I want. So in that area. And then lastly, the impact of the special use will not exceed the existing or planned capacity of public or municipal services or infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, police, fire, protection services, refuse disposal, municipal water or sewerage systems, other utilities, etc. The proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for services or infrastructure that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. All right. So if there aren't any other comments, then we can begin to move towards a motion if anyone is so moved. So and I'll just speak hypothetically for the moment. If one were to recommend approval, one of the conditions, which is a typical condition, would be that it's contingent on final site plan approval. And then the other one would be just help me again, Rodney, what was your terminology? A statement of finding that the applicant has agreed to amend the site plan to not include the road, the closure of the road at this point?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Clerk Cody.
Sorry, I was muted. I'll make a motion to recommend that to the Township Board of Trustees to approve the PSUP 20-02 special use permit application for Malley Construction for the contractor's yard on approximately 8.59 acres of land, parcel number 14-011-30-001-07 and 14-001-40-002-00 on the south side of East Airport Road and East Packard Street in the southwest quarter, section 11, and in I-1 light industrial zoning district, finding that it can comply with section 14.3J standards for special use approval, subject to the following conditions. A final site plan is approved for the proposed special PSUP 20-02 development, and the Planning Commission acknowledges that Mr. Malley will be removing the closure of Packard Street for this project.
I support.
So the motion was made by Cody and it was seconded by Buckley. Further discussion?
Just one comment that on the second parcel number, Clerk Cody had said 14-001. I believe it should be 011. Just
correct
clarification.
Okay, thank you. It's correct in the printed material, so presumably, hopefully that should stay correct, but good to point that out.
Thank you.
Other discussion? I'll just say real quickly that you know, I certainly read the comment that was offered in writing and the concerns that were expressed, but I've heard nothing to suggest to me anyway that this is going to go beyond the scope of what's allowed under a special use for a contractor's yard in an I-1, and so I'm not, and I don't think that if I read the comment, the commenter was not either saying that, at least I didn't interpret him saying he had a problem with those uses. I think he was expressing a concern if it were to go in some other direction, but I think it's clear what we're approving, and I anticipate that it will conform to what is being approved. So, other comments? If not, we've got a motion on the floor, so I'll ask for a call of the roll, please.
Darren, Buckley,
Support.
Cody,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
Fuller,
Support.
Squattrito,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
and Shingles.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So again, that will go as a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So the next item is the site plan for this project. And that was in this 3-page thing in your packet. Shows the location of the property. So we've dealt with the issue of the road. There was some discussion in the materials provided by township staff about screening. So I guess I want to ask Rodney and or Peter to introduce this portion and then give us any comments or updates that you have.
Thank you. You have our report dated December 8th. And you have the proposed site plan that was originally presented to you in the packet. As was said, this is tied to our special use permit process. We found that the site plan, there were some items of information that were missing. Those are noted at the beginning of our report, some basic details. We did find that the site plan did meet a number of our standards. Parking is a non-issue, so as long as the building is only used for storage. The existing building, there would not, and no employees are planned to be on the site, stationed on the site. There would be no requirement for parking separate from his facility's existing parking on the other side of Packard Street. We've talked about the Packard Street issue. We did on page 4 of our report. We did have some comments about landscaping. Landscaping and screening are actually not a preliminary site plan requirement. The language of the ordinance for preliminary site plans simply says conceptual landscaping. Literally bubble diagrams would suffice for that. This is where we'll have the screening. In this case, the applicant did provide some additional information. So we did review it, and we noted that there are some differences between what's proposed and what the ordinance requires, both in terms of how the location and numbers. In some cases, there are more trees, for example, proposed than are actually required. But in general, the direction that the plan takes is a good one. There will need to be some additional details provided on the final site plan and some adjustments made to fully comply with section 10, the landscaping and screening section. But overall, as I said, other than the question of closing Packard Street, that being removed and addressing that, and addressing a few items of missing information, the preliminary site plan can conform to the standards for site plan approval of a preliminary site plan. We have included in our report a recommendation for a conditional approval that you'll see there, essentially addressing those items of information, addressing the road closure, and in this case, a condition that if you took action this evening, that any action tonight would be contingent upon the Board of Trustees taking final action on the special use permit. So you have options tonight. The special use permit application will need to go to the Board of Trustees for their final action under section 14.3 of the ordinance. So you can choose to do a conditional approval tonight of the site plan. You could also postpone action and wait for the Board of Trustees to take their action on the special use permit. That would also give the applicant time to update their site plan and take care of the items that have been discussed tonight. So although our report does provide for a conditional approval, it also would be equally beneficial perhaps to consider a postponement and a request simply to revise the plan and resubmit it for review, further review at a future meeting.
Does our, I mean, I should know this, of course, because we just went through the process of approving the thing, but in terms of the procedure spelled out in the new zoning ordinance, every project is required, well, most projects are required to have both the preliminary site plan get approved and then also the final site plan get approved.
That is true for a development like this, or essentially taking a site and changing the use of the property or developing it, what had been a mostly vacant site. That does normally require preliminary and final site plan approval. There are a list of projects in the ordinance that are subject only to what's called a minor site plan approval, which is an administrative process. And those would be, expanding a parking lot. There's a number of things there that would fall under that.
But I guess my point is really that for me anyway, to postpone it, I mean, if the goal is to move it through expeditiously, then it seems like you give all your advice now and let the person revise it in the final form so that maybe the final could get approved on the first go rather than just kind of pushing it down the road.
Right.
I agree that on when a special use is involved or anything else that requires board approval is involved, there's that added layer of back and forth that doesn't exist on a just a plain site plan that's in a use by right situation. So, but and I'm open to obviously to the will of the commissioners here, but I would be inclined to suggest that we try to tell them anything that needs to be corrected to do that. Ryan?
I'd only point out, Phil, that I do agree with you in the sense that I don't see any reason to postpone. I don't actually see any conditions that we're placing on it that aren't pretty straightforward. I would only recommend to postpone if it was a more complicated issue. I was actually curious about, and this is probably a procedural question, but I guess I would want the planning commissioner's input as well, but are we obligated to get a site plan that has sidewalks on it and then a request for relief from those? Or can we, I mean, is it necessary to ask the applicant to put sidewalks on the final site plan if we have a sense that we're going to provide that relief regardless, just based on the nature of the project and that sort of thing? Maybe that's just a procedural issue.
So when it comes to sidewalks, what the applicant will have to do on the final site plan is show sidewalks. And if they are asking for relief, they will have to indicate that relief and on the site plan and choose from the available criteria from the sidewalk relief policy.
Thank you, Peter.
The reason for that is that the sidewalk ordinance is outside of the zoning ordinance. Like the private road ordinance, it applies generally. There's no grandfathering in. There's no ability to waive the requirement for a sidewalk. The policy that we've had that allows for temporary relief from construction is just that. But in order to be in compliance with that ordinance, the site plan does need to show the sidewalk. All we're really doing is addressing the timing of when a sidewalk might be constructed.
Okay, so really it's open for questions and comments from commissioners. I mean, anything that you want to suggest to the applicant or just any comments that people have, because at this stage it's that's the point, is to decide whether the overall layout and the way that the project looks makes sense, and then to make sure all the I's get dotted and T's crossed in the final version.
Mr. Darren has his hand up.
Yeah, Mike.
I know what it says in the application. I just want to confirm there is no lighting requested for this site. Security lighting, nothing, because that should be on the final site plan.
Yeah, so if there is any lighting proposed, it will have to be on the final site plan, and at this moment, the applicant has indicated there will be none.
That is an issue that Mr. Malley will need to address, because there is a building code requirement for lighting over doorways, and so I suspect that there may be a requirement for lighting that he will have to provide some basic information on the final site plan. But that for Mr. Malley, he will need to go back and look at that. And as I said, it's a state construction code requirement that would come into play, and that may require that lighting be provided.
Thank you.
Other comments and questions? So basically, if I'm understanding, then I'm looking at page 3 of the plan, that the fencing that's currently shown on Airport Road as going all the way across Packard to your other property is going to instead head south on the east side of that property, and you'll end up installing a gate of some kind, probably somewhere on that stretch of Packard.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. All right. Questions, comments?
I'd like to make a motion unless anybody has any additional comments.
I'm not hearing any, so go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve PSPR 20-15 preliminary site plan from Malley's Construction for a contractor's yard on approximately 8.59 acres of land, parcel numbers 14-011-30-001-07 and 14-011-40-002-00 on the south side of East Airport Road in the east and east of Packard Street in the southwest quarter of Section 11, and in the Section I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District, finding that the site plan with a revision date of November 19th, 2020 can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, remove the proposed closure of Packard Street from the final site plan for the project. 2, provide all items of required information on the final site plan per section 14.2.p. And 3, preliminary site plan approval is contingent upon the Board of Trustees' final approval of the PSUP 20-02 contractor's yard special use permit for this project.
Support.
The motion was by Buckley, second by Cody. I think that first 2 in there is spurious, isn't it?
That is a typo, yes.
Okay, so it's just PSUP 20-02. All right. Further discussion on the motion to approve the preliminary site plan as with the stated conditions.
Just a question for either Rodney or Peter. Do we need the same verbiage in item 1 regarding the removal of the proposed closure where we're acknowledging in this, or do we only need that for the special use?
I think that the condition really addresses it. I don't object if you were to use the same language from the the special use permit. But here you're simply noting that it will be removed.
Okay, and that won't affect his procedure going forward as we were trying to be conscious of in the first one?
No, this is the difference between a special use permit and the site plan. The special use permit runs with the land, so the conditions run with the land. I certainly understand Mr. Malley's concern with the condition on the special use permit, because it essentially would run in perpetuity. That's associated with the use. This item is simply associated with this particular site plan. Mr. Malley at any time can propose a different site plan when he's ready, if he'd like to pursue that closure and expand his facility across that space. So it only applies to this particular project, this particular site plan. And so I don't think there's an issue with that from with the language as it's presented.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Other comments or questions? If not, we've got a motion. It's been seconded, so I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Shingles. Darren,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
and Lap.
Yes.
That motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So you're on to the Board of Trustees and then back to us perhaps. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to our next item, which is a site plan review, preliminary site plan application, which is from Consumers Energy. It's PSPR 20-16. Right, for the modernization of what's called the City Gate Natural Gas Facility on the south side of East Pickard Road, west of Somerton. And so for this, I will again ask for an introduction from Rodney and or Peter with any updates that you want to give us. And then we'll also hear from the applicant or applicant's representative if they're here.
Thank you very much. You should have a report stated November 25th. This is a reconstruction of Consumers Energy's existing City Gate facility. This is a part of their natural gas distribution system for the Mount Pleasant area. As I said, on East Pickard Road near Somerton. They are rebuilding just about everything that's above ground as part of this project. They are proposing to replace 2 existing buildings that are out there with a single new building, replacing other equipment, proposing to replace part of the fencing and make other improvements to overall to modernize this facility. In addition to what you see above ground, there are also major transmission lines underground that run through this lot and to the area around. So as part of this project, I would just make a note that this is considered an essential service. We do have a provision in our zoning ordinance, section 7.15, essential services, that does allow the Planning Commission to accept certain modifications to regulations. As it notes there, I quoted the section governing lot area, building or structure height, building or structure placement, and use of land when strict compliance with such regulations would not be practical or feasible. That section also says that essential services shall comply with all applicable regulations that do not affect the basic design or essential operation of the service. So in this case, rather than a variance process, this section basically gives you the ability to approve a site plan with certain modifications to it that are necessary for the operation of the essential service. And our report reflects that. As we reviewed it, you'll see several places in our report where we identified issues related to, for example, fence height, where there's a need to have some additional height related to security, also how they're doing handling access and how they're arranging the landscaping. Those three issues are all ones we noted that would be covered by this section 7.15. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along.
Okay, thank you. And looking at the attendee list, I'm sure we have some representatives for the project. So if you want to go ahead and bring them across, at least I see Mr. Scott is the engineer.
Yep.
I don't know if the representative from RAU is part of this. I assume so.
Yep. So I have brought them both across, asked them to unmute.
Okay. Can y'all hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, there should be a couple of consumers addresses in there as well. There should be a Joe Lawson and Harmony Nolan.
I don't have Harmony Nolan here. I do have a phone number, a 313 phone number. I've asked whoever has the 313 phone number to unmute. The only other name I don't recognize is Denise Kenny.
Denise is also with consumers.
Okay, I will move her over. But I don't see Harmony on here.
And there's not a Joe Lawson on there?
No, I haven't seen Joe Lawson the whole evening.
Oh, Lindsay Pedersen is also on the line?
No, the other people that are on here are related to the other site plan project we have.
Okay, because Lindsay just texted me that she was on the line as well.
Okay, I don't.
Well, the person on the phone hasn't identified themselves yet that I've heard.
So the person that has the 313 phone number, it ends in 834, is unmuted.
Hi, this is Joe Lawson. I'm online and on the phone. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we've got all the applicants. Well, we've got all the applicants' representatives that we can find over with us here. So I guess we'd like to give you an opportunity to, say anything you'd like to say about the project, and certainly to stand for questions from the planning commissioners here. This is a preliminary application, so we're just trying to, at this point, get a sense of what you're doing and identify any problems, and make sure that we've got things communicated for the next round.
Sure. Hi, this is Joe Lawson again. Just to give a quick overview or whatnot, Mr. Nanny covered it rather well in his report, as well as his summary that he provided to the commission this evening. Very quickly, just to summarize the entire project, this is an upgrade or an update to an existing facility where we do replace everything above ground, as well as much of the piping below ground. We will be installing upgraded valves that can be operated remotely, as well as making some other improvements to the site as well, just to allow it to run more efficiently with the drive-through drive lane and whatnot, so we don't have to have that turnaround. So besides that, we've added some landscaping to try to soften the appearance of the facility as well. And as you already know, Doug Scott and Katie Lambert from Rowe are also available. They are consulting engineers, so if we have any questions, your team is here to answer them for you, hopefully. So we're here for questions.
Excellent, thank you. So it's open for questions from commissioners. Certainly say it looks like a nice project. Alex, did you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I was just, I see there's light pole details on here, but I can't find any light poles located on the site plan. And I would, think that a photometric plan would be useful here as, you are bordering a hospitality, a hotel on one side so that the light doesn't interfere over there.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that the lighting details are a final site plan issue. You will see those details, but it is a final site plan item. They did provide some light information and we did comment on it, but it's actually not required until final site plan.
Then there was one clerical on the grading and soil erosion sheet. It says Wallet Lake City Gate location map. And then there's an arrow down in the Michigan that points to Macomb County or something down there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Walled Lake. I saw that too. We're in good company though, right? I mean, that's good company. So I guess I want to, just because I don't get to talk to people from consumers that often, except when the stuff is out. Is this, when you refer to it as City Gate, is this like where all the gas that comes into Mount Pleasant passes through?
Essentially what a city gate facility is we're taking high pressure gas off transmission gas mains. And the city gate basically reduces the pressure so we can distribute it to the distribution system within that given region. As part of the facility you see on the plan, there's a heater and a filter separator and a ton of valves. So that facility as a whole, like I mentioned, takes high pressure gas and reduces it to low pressure or lower pressure for distribution.
And what geographic area does that particular installation serve?
I'd have to look for sure. I don't want to tell you, certain roads that wouldn't incorporate this one. But it would most likely cover probably at least the north half of Mount Pleasant and most, if not all, of Union Township.
Okay. All right. And is there going to be, how do you completely replace something like that without interrupting service?
There's always backups. There's probably, and I'd have to look once again. This isn't my area, so please forgive me. I'm filling in for someone who's on vacation. There's most likely another facility south of here that feeds the southern portion of the community of Mount Pleasant in particular. Basically, we'll just backfeed off of that. We have a very detailed shutdown program where we have to basically plan out all these shutdowns when this occurs. That way we don't interrupt service to any of our customers. And then that window is set very strictly. So this facility needs to be constructed and back operational on a very strict timeline.
This is Denise Kenny, if you can hear me. I am the project engineer on this. And I can also tell you that the medium pressure outlet for this will also be fed by a temporary regulation system.
Okay, thank you.
During construction anyway.
Mm-hmm.
During normal operations after construction, it looks like on the north side of the building, like you have some equipment, maybe pumps, maybe compressors, not sure what they are. Are they noise producing equipment or am I misled?
No, what is this, the equipment to the north is there's a heater, which does produce some noise. And then there's a filter separator, which does not produce much noise at all.
So what decibel does that heater produce?
Give me just a moment and I will look it up. One of the benefits of working from home.
And while you're looking that up, is that the only noise producing equipment outside of the building?
Yes, sir.
And while you're looking up that information, if you run across the, I guess, the hours of operation of that heater, is that constant or is that only used for maintenance or?
No, the heater will be running during the winter or during the colder period. Usually we turn on our heaters around the beginning of November. They'll be running through the beginning of April. And that will be an as needed basis it'll fire up. And it looks like my noise level is 85 decibels.
So are you willing to put a sound barrier around that in order to reduce what reaches the hotel to the west of you?
I can look into that. I can also see what the current, because there is currently a heater on site. I can also check the noise level of that one as well.
That might be a nice consideration.
Okay.
Other questions and comments?
We're not looking to have any lights near the doors on this building because I think, like Rodney pointed out, there may be state, I think,
It's building code requirements.
I'm sorry, building code required wall packs or whatever you're going to use to light the doors, the entrances, and that they're down shielded.
I do know that most of the door, okay, I believe all the doors on our building do have a light. We are well aware of the ordinances. So I believe, unfortunately, my electrical counterpart for this project is not on, but I know that he's been working through the requirements.
Generally, those fixtures are also switch activated. They're not on all the time.
Thank you. Yes.
I believe in your report, Rodney, you said something about the fencing they're proposing is 7 feet, and somewhere we've got a maximum of 6. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, the zoning ordinance has a maximum of 6 feet for the perimeter fencing, but because this is an essential service,
Right.
they do have security needs. We found it to be a reasonable modification to allow the 7-foot ornamental fence that they've proposed.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I mean, you don't really want people going into this who aren't supposed to be there. Yeah. And then can you talk about the why you've chosen to add the outlet onto Somerton, and how is this going to work? Is it just going to be, whichever way they're coming from, they'll either enter off Pickard or enter off Somerton, or is it supposed to be one way, or what?
Yeah, I can feel that question. What it is that periodically, once a year or less, we will need to have an odorant delivery. So that comes in a very large tanker truck. And the reason for having the entrance off of Somerton is it's much easier for a truck of that size to be able to come into the station off of Somerton and then would be able to leave off of Pickard.
Okay. So you don't anticipate that which, aside from the truck, then just whoever comes and routinely checks on the facility would always come in off Pickard, or they can come either way. It doesn't really matter.
They would be able to come either way.
Okay. All right, but the truck needs to come in off Somerton.
it makes it much easier to be able to maneuver that to truck if
Okay.
it comes off the summertime.
Okay. And this is the mercaptan delivery, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. It's a chemical. I was kind of interested when I read about that. I know what that is.
I got you. And I also wanted to amend, I was looking through, I did purchase, there is a low noise modification for the heater, so the decibel level is actually below 70 decibels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My suggestion, Denise, would be to just detail that on the final site plan.
Okay.
Yeah. There's probably more noise in the hotel depending on who the guests are than there is in the heat place.
Well, in industry with 70 dB, we typically wouldn't even require maintenance workers or operators to wear hearing protection at that level, just to give everybody a sense at how loud that is.
It's good to know. Other questions and comments?
I guess the applicant understands the need to put the sidewalk on Somerton Road.
Yeah, we discussed that in our preliminary meeting and basically we'll have it on the final site plan on that. But I think we were talking just a little bit, trying to figure out exactly, Rodney, I'm not sure if we were certain that it needed to go in at this time or if it was something in the future on that too.
Well, as we discussed with the last project, the sidewalk ordinance simply applies generally. It's not part of the zoning ordinance. It doesn't have provision for grandfathering. What I think I suggested to you was that you note on the site plan the timing of construction. If you wanted to do the construction, say at the end after everything else is done or something like that, you certainly could. The township has adopted, as was discussed with the previous applicant, a policy related to providing temporary relief from construction of a sidewalk. And there are certain criteria basically that can be considered by the planning commission. The sidewalk would still need to be shown in the plan, but relief can be granted if you comply with the criteria. The problem is that the criteria are really focused on being an industrial district is one of the criteria. So that previous project in industrial district met that standard simply because it's in the industrial zoning district. There are other standards it actually meets as well. In this case, with your project being on major county roads and state highways, I'm not sure that you would meet the criteria for that temporary relief. There's not really any. All the criteria in there are such that your project would not satisfy them. So, in your case, my suggestion would be is to simply indicate the timing of the road or timing of the sidewalk construction on the site plan. So, as I say, if you want to wait till the end to do it, yeah, you certainly can, but you just put a kind of a deadline date by which the sidewalk be constructed. I can certainly share with you the criteria that in this temporary relief policy, but as I said, I don't see that you meet any of them.
Other questions and comments?
Bill, I just have one question.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. I know that the applicant has said that once the I guess the switch over to the backups gas has started, there's a very tight timeline for when for getting the project done. I'm just curious if the project itself is dependent at all on seasonally on weather, or if there's this. I'm when that work can commence, or if it's dependent on weather, that sort of thing. I'm just curious for my own sake.
Yes, I could tell you that most of our construction work happens usually starting at the beginning of April, and then we try to end our construction by about the end of October. And mostly because that's when the demand for natural gas is at its lowest, where people aren't usually running their furnaces.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, this is a preliminary site plan, so we would be approving a preliminary site plan with conditions or suggested changes that are noted. So we can have a motion if anyone is so moved, or we can have further discussion or questions if people have them.
I'll make a motion to approve the PSPR 20-16 preliminary site plan for Consumers Energy for the Pickard Road City Gate reconstruction project on parcel number 14-013-20-0001-00, located on the south side of East Pickard Road between South Somerton and the Baymont Inn in the northeast quarter, section 13, and in B7 retail and service highway business zoning district, finding that November 2020 site plan can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2P required site plan information and 14.2S standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, the access fence height and planting location modifications are accepted as presented on the site plan per section 7.15 of the zoning ordinance. 2, include a specific revision date on the final site plan cover sheet. 3, add the required public sidewalk along the length of the South Somerton Road frontage and associated details to the final site plan.
So the motion was by Cody, and I heard support. I didn't see who said it.
LaBelle.
Okay, second by LaBelle. Further discussion? If no further discussion, then please call the roll. I'm sorry?
If I may, for just a moment, yeah, there were 2 other items that were discussed. I just wanted to find out if you wanted to include them as conditions. One was the clerical error, which I'm sure they'll fix. The other one was the heater noise, addressing heater noise mitigation measures on the final site plan. Did you want to include that as a condition, or just?
No, well, she clarified that it was only going to be 70 decibel of noise during normal operation, and I don't believe that requires a sound deadening fence.
Okay.
So they handled it with another engineering mitigation.
Okay, good.
I think I might suggest, I mean, we all have great memories, but I would suggest putting a note to that effect on the final site plan, just a little box with the sound, whatever you are stating that the sound is going to be during normal operation, whatever, something like that.
One other minor point, in the motion, it's called Pickard Road City Gate. Should be Mount Pleasant City Gate.
Okay, do you accept, does the mover accept that as a friendly, I wouldn't even call it an amendment, a friendly correction?
Yes.
Yes.
Seconder? Yeah, the plans refer to it as Mount Pleasant City Gate, so we'll refer to it as the Mount Pleasant City Gate reconstruction project. Anything else? If not, then I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
and LaBelle.
Yes.
That motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to you all for being here, helping us understand the project. We'll look forward to
Thank you.
seeing the final site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are going to move across the street to the north side of Pickard, because our next item is a preliminary site plan application for a new kind of Bigby Coffee drive-through. And it's on the north side, as I said, of Pickard, just west of Somerton. So, and this is PSPR 20-17. Right. And so I'll briefly, again, call on Rodney and or Peter to give us a brief introduction and any comments you want to make. And then we'll also bring the folks across and let them talk to us.
All right, well, thank you. You have our report dated December 2nd. As you said, this is a new concept for our area. They call it the B cubed, and it is a modular building that would be brought in and set on this property. They're proposing to make use of the east parking lot that associated with the former Mid-Michigan Community College building on Pickard Road. And they would be essentially setting it down in that parking lot and reconfiguring the parking lot to provide for their drive-through service. And they also propose to have a walk-up window and a small outdoor seating area as part of the project. They are leasing a portion of the parcel from the college, which still owns the building and the parking lot. So they're not buying that property, but they're leasing a portion of it to put this up, and they're proposing use the college's existing driveway access from Pickard Road to come into it. You've seen, our site plan, we noted some similar issues to the previous one. Some information was missing. Overall, the site plan is generally very solid. We did have some comments on sidewalks that we can discuss further. And some comments on exterior lighting and landscaping, which are final site plan details, but they did provide some information, so we're able to give them some direction on those things. After our report was sent out, the applicant did respond to that, and their response is included in your packet. In our report, we noted that they would need to construct the sidewalk along Somerton, similar to the Consumers Energy site. There's an existing sidewalk in Pickard, but not on Somerton. They have requested a waiver to that. And they've noted in their response that they don't control the parcel, and that they indicate that they've only leased a small portion of the parcel for their facility. So that is an item that I would certainly encourage you to discuss with the applicant this evening. It's an unusual question. I don't think we've had this question come up in this way before. So it's something that will need to be looked at. With that in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions as we go along. I'll promote the various folks here that we have with us. We have a number of people that are associated with this project, both from the college and from Bigby Coffee. I'm sorry, the Big B Coffee franchisee. Lost my mind there for a moment.
Hi, Rodney, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Is this a good time for an introduction for our family then?
Yeah, we normally give the applicant an opportunity to, give us a little, just whatever you'd like to say about your project and then stand for questions. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I'll speak on behalf of my family. My name's Landon Palmer, and I'm one of the co-owners of the proposed B Cube, and also my father Rodney, mother Eileen, and brother Austin. So it's a family-owned business. We have 5 existing Big B Coffee locations, including the recently purchased Big B Coffee on Bluegrass Road in Union Township, and that was in October of 2018. We're extremely excited about the project, and yeah, I'm going to pass over kind of the technical talk over to Tanya. She is the director of the B Cube project for us, and she'll kind of handle all the specifics when it comes to the project. But it's kind of a new and exciting thing, and we're excited to have another one in Union Township, hopefully.
Okay, thank you. So Tanya, if you'd like to proceed.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Tanya Olson with B Cube Manufacturing. Thank you for considering this proposal. As Landon said, they are very excited to bring this new concept to the Mount Pleasant area and specifically Union Township. The B Cubed is 349 square feet of very efficient coffee making space. It was an invention of our owner. He is a native of Michigan, Alpena, Michigan, actually. We source all of our materials from the Michigan area. The building is highly efficient. As Rodney mentioned, it is modular, but it is nowhere near what you would consider when you have that historic thought of a modular in your mind. If you get inside the building and you jump up and down, you will not feel the building move. It is solid. It is quality. It is installed on 11 piers, foundational piers that go into the ground. The building is 20,000 pounds. The 3 pieces, when assembled on site and put together, has a drive-through awning attached to the building. We have 8 of them, and well, actually, as of today, we have 9 installed in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. And as you can imagine, with COVID and all the concerns happening in the world today, a product like this has become very, very popular. And the Big B Coffee franchise, the Big B Coffee brand, is one of the first brands that B Cubed Manufacturing is working with to bring these types of applications forward for food service.
So it's open for questions and discussion from planning commissioners. I guess maybe is our remaining, we've got the Palmers on the, I'm looking at my window. We've got the Palmer group over here. We've got Tanya, and then you're Scott. Is that right? Are you with the college?
I am. I'm the Vice President of Academic Affairs and Community Outreach.
Okay. And why are you here? Or tell us what's your role in this, or what would you like to say on behalf of the college or about the project?
Well, we were approached actually by Landon about this. As all of you know, the building has been vacant for quite some time when we made the move over to our Somerton and Broadway location, final move in 2015. So the building has been vacant and for sale for a while. Landon brought this to us. We thought it was a very creative idea that would provide some visibility. It's a great location for him. And, it provides sort of a usefulness for the building as it is now without providing a tremendous amount of disruption. The building, the B Cubed, which is sitting right behind Tanya, if you want to take a look at what one of them looks like, is something that is, it is anchored into the ground, but it is also removable with, minimal damage to the parking lot. Mid will still retain ownership of the building. Mid will still retain ownership of the lot itself. We teach truck driving out of there, which will not be impacted by this. But we do think that this is, it's an attractive option to provide some visibility to a space that could really use it.
So I don't know where my fellow commissioners want to begin. There's obviously the question about the sidewalk. There was some question raised about whether there should be a separate entrance off of Somerton, those types of things. But then there's also the project itself. So floor's open for questions. I saw Ryan's hand first, and then I'll go to Mike.
I'm just curious about, it's an interesting concept. I've not seen the use of these type of structures before. I'm curious about the duration of the lease, and if something were to come to pass at the end of the lease or at a termination of the lease, is that just something that could potentially be picked up and moved to another site in town? Is that kind of the concept and how that works?
Yes. I can't speak to the term of the lease, but yes, the B-cubed buildings are designed to be movable or expandable. If they need a little bit more storage capacity, we have a unit that can go on the end, a smaller space. They are anchored to the foundations, but if it does need to move for any reason, we unbolt it, pull it back apart, move it, and then resurface the parking lot to where it was before. So no blight. It's a capital investment for the franchisee.
Mike, if you're done playing with your sunflowers.
Well, this is exciting. I like the look of this concept, and obviously that parking lot's been empty quite a bit. So I think it's great use of space. I do have a concern, and seeing that Scott brought it up. Yeah, we've all seen the truck drivers, and I'm more worried of the safety aspect. I see traffic flow, but that's going to be very close to the brand new truck drivers. So a little bit of concern there. And then also foot traffic. I assume the seating area is on the east end of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? And so to get from what I think, well, is any of this park on the east side or the west side of the building allocated to you for those guests who want to go up to the walk-up window on the east side? Is that correct?
So the east side where there'll be a bit like a raised patio look.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be defined that way. And then the intent is that the parking of the lot in and of itself would be a shared resource for anyone that is using or interested in sitting at the patio. And as you can see, we'll be adding a connection to the existing sidewalk on Pickard to help with that connectivity of walkability as well.
Okay.
And honestly, the truck driving, it's not as if it's high speed in there.
No, I agree.
Yeah, but that can actually be moved primarily to the north side. We do have a lot, in the back as well. They're talking about really locating where we expanded the lot several years ago. So most of the truck driving can be towards the north end and really stay away for the most part from any traffic that Bigby leads to.
Okay. And so the intent is actually to draw lines and arrows for traffic control and also to give people a sense of where they can walk to get to that walk-up window.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In the site plan, what we've tried to provide is indications of what the striping and marking would be to help with the delineation of the space and the circulation of traffic.
Okay. Thank you. And then I also noticed you did indicate your wall pack lighting. You call them out as floods, and we want down shielded.
Yeah.
And like Commissioner Fuller said, we like to see the lumens area so that we know that we're not breaching into traffic or what have you.
Right. So there's the drive-through traffic lane has a light, but the sign, the big B that's up on the top, that has the floods that are obviously pointed at the signage. They would not be pointed out, but we will we'll be looking at that further for final site plan.
Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions?
If I could just offer a couple of points of comment. It was brought up, the sidewalks and the additional access point. Rodney, thank you for pointing out the applicant is not the land owner. They are leasing space, so they have asked for relief from the sidewalk condition. And also in discussion with staff, it was the issue of access was addressed, and the recommendation was to put in a potential future access point onto Somerton. We did so with the expectation that that would be a future need evaluation. And so as you consider this request, we hope that you will consider it with for approval, and that you would apply the conditions of 4B and 5B that staff has recommended.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask Rodney, do you have a sense of what the township's position is with regard to sidewalks when the entity doing the construction is not the actual owner of the property?
This is as I said, this is a unique circumstance. You know, if they were the leaseholder of the entire parcel, I think that we would simply say that they need to put the sidewalk in. But they don't. No, I have not seen the lease, and this is an item that we note in our report. We'd like to see the documentation for the lease. So at this point, we're relying on the applicant's information. But in a circumstance where they don't have any control through a lease of the land over on Somerton, I don't see how we can require them to do what essentially would be off-site improvements related to their project. The requirement for a connector from our existing Pickard Road sidewalk is one that we can reasonably tie to the project, and that we're requiring them to make sure they have pedestrian access to their facility. But I think that as long as the lease actually shows what they say it does, which is that they're only leasing a very small area of land, I think that is a reason to allow the project to proceed without the Somerton sidewalk construction. But as I said, they noted in their response that they, I think, and it may have been a typo, I don't know, but they noted that the redacted copy of the lease that we asked for in our report was not needed because of the proposal to not have that sidewalk. That's not the case. We do need documentation to show, essentially to have somebody hang our hat on to say that, okay, that Somerton sidewalk or that Somerton driveway do not apply because they don't control that land.
Okay.
Sorry, Rodney, that was a typo about the lease. I believe the intention is fully to comply with that request for that information.
Okay.
So would the potential obligation to install a sidewalk in any way fall to the actual owner of the property if they're leasing a portion of it for a business?
Yes, if you wish to, you could obligate the college to construct this sidewalk. The problem is the college is not the applicant. Yeah, and so there again, we're kind of in an awkward circumstance with that. I think if you wanted to head down that road, that maybe the thing to do tonight would be to essentially pass a motion to direct staff to work with the college on that issue, and we can talk to Mr. Mertz and see where we can go with that.
Yeah, Rodney, I can tell you that the college would not, would really not want to go down that road. I mean, we don't have any interest in improving it to that degree. That being said, we'd hate for a business to not be able to flourish, because of that. Obviously, it is up to you guys. And that's a decision that has to be made. But I don't think the college has interest in adding a sidewalk there.
So this ultimately, this can be addressed, with the final site plan when you have a copy of the lease in hand and you have that documentation in front of you. Our concern and the reason why we suggested that there be some provision for a driveway off of Somerton in the future is in relation to the college building itself. This is a 57,000 square foot office building. Fairly nice. It's a little bit worn. It's just because it was used, and it certainly needs some work on it. But it's a solid building. 57,000 square feet of space, needs a lot of parking. It potentially brings a lot of cars in. And so our concern was if that building were ever to be occupied again fully, that we may run into an issue with traffic patterns, and that's why we suggested the condition 5. I think it was 5A that looked at the idea of requiring that driveway to be constructed within a certain period after that building is fully occupied. As we've looked at this issue a little further, first of all, the existing parking lot on the parcel with the former college building, there's actually more than enough parking existing on that parcel to reoccupy that office building without even touching the east parking lot, and they would more than meet our minimum requirements for an office facility. So then the only question comes up is related to use of that driveway. My expectation is that any future use of that college building is going to probably want a driveway off of Somerton anyway, because it is convenient and because it does provide for a little easier access getting in and out. So as we've looked at this, and especially as we had the site plan and we were able to count parking spaces and we look at the details, I'm less concerned with the Somerton driveway being included, and that's so. At this point, I would not have an objection to you approving the condition as we put it in the draft motion, the condition 5B, which is essentially the one to eliminate that driveway. With regards to the sidewalk, as I said, assuming that they're correct about the lease, I don't see how we can require them to put in the Somerton sidewalk that they don't control, since they don't control that area of land.
Right. But you are talking about a small connector between the Pickard sidewalk and the parking lot. So if someone's walking down Pickard, they don't have to go all the way around and walk through the parking lot to get to or the bulk of the parking lot to get to the shop.
Right, and see that one has a direct relationship to the project, and so yes, that one we can require, and the applicants made clear that they're comfortable doing that.
All right. Okay. So other questions from commissioners for the project, Mike?
Just like to talk about the trash receptacle and the location being about a quarter mile away, and possibly with the Somerton Road access, crossing the main entrance. And I'm not, it also didn't show like there was lighting necessary, or is there?
There's an existing light pole.
Yeah,
The
there's
light
existing
pole
lighting in the lot,
does-
yeah.
Mhm.
And it does shine down in that area, that location. So from a safety standpoint, if an employee was taking a card over there, they'd still be able to access it without. Okay.
So
But it
yeah,
is a long ways away.
it's a long ways away, but if we put it closer to the building, then it becomes, a visibility to the Pickard Road. So it seemed like the most logical location with the setup that's there right now.
As long as it's acceptable to the company, I guess that's the important thing. But and to the school.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that these, most of what is thrown away is the cups that actually leave the building through the drive-through windows. So they're only going to be producing about 4 bags of trash a day, perhaps. Is about it.
And Tanya, I can add to that as well, just from an operational standpoint. We never make our staff do anything that makes them feel unsafe. And we do our closing checklists, and we wrap up all the trash around 5 o'clock. Before dark, we make sure that the 2 people on, one person's going out and getting the trash done. And then we actually have one trash bin that maybe will have a few cups in it, and maybe a couple empty gallons of milk that is we allow to stay near the door and inside the building actually overnight, and then be taken out in daylight the next day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike, and I'm not sure if this is what you were getting at though, but in terms of our issue with the location of it, it's a good location for us. It allows us to still complete the activities that we normally do in that lot, which are relatively minimal. But it also ties in nicely to utilities and so on and so forth. So it works out really well for both parties.
Thank you.
Just to clarify to the applicant, in reading your responses to the notes that Rodney has provided in the findings and whatnot, it appears as though I just want to clarify, make sure that I'm correct, that with the exception of the sidewalk that you're requesting a relief for, you're comfortable with all the other kind of conditions that Rodney has recommended. Should we proceed with an approval on this?
Go ahead, Tanya.
I was going to say that one's for you, Landon.
Okay, well, I would say yes. As we talked about the sidewalk, and we talked about Ronnie talked about the road, and those were our 2 main concerns as being we're leasing this property, and so that was our main concern with those. But everything else, I believe we will have on the final site plan, and the sidewalk that did connect Pickard to our operation is approved and everything. So.
Other questions or comments? So again, this is a preliminary site plan. So if we're inclined to approve it, it would be approving a preliminary site plan with the revised final site plan to follow.
I'll make a motion to approve the PSPR 20-17 preliminary site plan for Rills Palmer LLC construction of the new Big B Coffee modular building, drive-through lane, and outdoor seating area on parcel number 14-012-04-007-07 located on the north side of East Pickard Road between Somerton Road and the former Mid-Michigan Community College building at 5805 East Pickard Road in the southeast quarter of Section 12 in the B7 Retail and Service Highway Business Zoning District. Finding that November 2027 can comply with the applicable.
We lost sound on you.
She's muted.
It's dying. My computer is dying. Where'd you lose me at?
November 2020. Applicable zoning ordinance.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. Applicable. Oh, in the beginning?
No, can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements.
Right after November 2020.
Okay, for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2P required site plan information and 14.2S standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, provide documentation of permission for the owner of utilize adjacent land and driveway in 5805 East Pickard Road for access to the facility with the final site plan submittal. 2, add the sidewalk connection into the site from East Pickard Road to the final site plan. 3, update the parking, exterior lighting, and landscaping on the final site plan to conform to the zoning ordinance requirements and add specific revision date to the final site plan. 4B, add the new public sidewalk along the length of South Somerton Road frontage to the final site plan, but temporary relief is granted for construction of this new sidewalk because the applicant does not have leasehold rights to the entire parcel. And then 5A, add a note to the final site plan confirming that the applicant will construct the access from South Somerton Road within 90 calendar days.
It's actually 5B.
Oh, we're going. I thought it was 5A because we didn't want to remove it from the final site plan. But we want to make it so it was, or it's 5A.
But 5A would require them to, would obligate them to put that driveway to Somerton in if the office building is not ever occupied. 5B says that they are not obligated to put that Somerton Drive in, and allows it to be removed. Based on, as I said, based on the fact that the existing parking lot for the office building has more than sufficient space for and based on the potential for the site in the future, I have no objection to you employing 5B if you choose to, and simply allowing them to remove the driveway from the site plan.
Okay, we'll go with 5B. Future access from South Somerton is not necessary and can be removed from the final site plan.
Okay, that was the motion. Is there a second? Darren, second by Darren. Motion by Cody, second by Darren. Further discussion? More questions? Not, please call the roll.
Cody,
Yes.
Squatrito,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Lap,
Yes.
and LaBelle. That motion also carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So one hurdle done, and we'll look forward to seeing the final site plan.
Well, I had one more question. I'm just out of my own curiosity for the applicant. When we see the final site plan, do you guys have a desired target date to proceed with work on this and completion?
So we have buildings ready to go. Right now, the issue will be, how the weather is going to play out
Okay,
for the rest of the year. So
sure. Okay.
It's really more of a parallel of pipe head than a cube, though, isn't it? With that
It
slanted
is.
roof.
It is, you're right. I know. I asked the owner that same question. I'm like, this isn't a cube. It's a cute name though, so it works.
It'll definitely get the nickname, that's for sure.
That's right.
You need a little 3 above the B on the shirt.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you.
much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to our final agenda item, at least under new business. Our applicant or our attendee room had dwindled down to a precious one. And so last but by no means least, we've got the, what are we calling it? Request for restoration of temporary relief from sidewalk construction for two properties on Remus Road, Merchandise Outlet and Woodland Investments. And I thought the write-up from the staff, from Rodney and Peter, was very clear, but is there anything you want to say in addition to that?
Pete, I've asked Peter to comment on this for us tonight.
Okay, Peter?
So as the chair indicated, we have your the write-up for you, and I think it has everything in there that you could need. But just to kind of summarize and to go over kind of the history, of course, since 2010, we required sidewalks on site plans. The township has been issuing one time called them waivers, and then we changed it to temporary relief from sidewalk construction. And that basically doesn't eliminate the requirement to build a sidewalk. It just temporarily waives it or gives temporary relief to the owner until a future date and time. Back in 2018, the sidewalk committee, which was established by the Planning Commission as part of our sidewalk pathways ordinance, serves as a sort of a subcommittee of the Planning Commission, prioritized a list of projects that fell within what we call priority streets. And we looked at site plans that were given relief that were located on these priority streets, and I believe it was a list of about 5 properties that were their waivers were called in. One of those properties is Woodland Investments. Another is Merchandise Outlets owned by Fight Shooty Investments. And so I've been in contact with both of these owners as far as working towards getting sidewalks installed in both properties. With particular Woodland Investments LLC, they had contacted Isabella Corporation to install sidewalks in the summer, paid for it. It took some time to get going. I stayed in contact with the owner to make sure that they were put in. They had paid for it. And then when they got close to installing them, they found out that they had issues unknown to them, being one that they would have to install due to MDOT requirements, sidewalks on property that they do not own and have no control over. And so this became an obstacle for the owners to be able to install sidewalks on property that is not theirs, that was never part of their site plan when it was approved to put sidewalks on anywhere except their property. And then second is, since that time, the EDA has reserved funds for fiscal year 2021, yet not approved, to be final approved by the Board of Trustees later this month. And if approved, provides funding for sidewalks to be installed on both the north and south side of Remus Road. And so at this time, our recommendation is to reestablish the previously granted temporary relief from sidewalk construction for those 2 parcels on Remus Road.
Okay. Questions for Peter?
We actually have confirmation from the EDA. They are planning on putting sidewalk down that road.
I can comment on that topic. The EDA did include the funding in their fiscal year 2021 budget. That budget is they approved the budget. They then recommended it for approval to the Board of Trustees. That is on the Board of Trustees agenda for tomorrow evening to take final action on that budget. There hasn't been any comments, negative comments about that. I presume that funding will go through. We are focused, assuming it goes through, we're focused on including the Remus Road corridor in our 2021 sidewalk program. So we'll be working with the the civil engineer that helps us with that project to include Remus Road in their work for 2021.
Other questions? We can have a motion if anyone is so moved.
I'll motion to approve the request to reestablish the previously granted temporary relief from sidewalk construction for parcels at 2467 East Remus Road, Merchandise Outlet, and 2060 East Remus Road, Woodland Investments in B5 Highway Business Zoning District, because the MDOT requirements would unreasonably require the property owner to construct improvements on property not owned by the current property owner, and because the EDA board has included funds for some additional sidewalks along Remus Road in their FY 2021 recommended budget, subject to the following conditions. Condition: no new construction or modifications to either existing side required site plan approval is proposed, approved, or constructed. If so, sidewalk construction will be required at that time.
Okay. Would anyone who hasn't seconded anything tonight like to second that?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Lap. So a motion was by Cody, second by Lap. Further discussion?
So what if
Go
this
ahead,
budget
Jessica.
gets voted down?
I'm sorry. Let me recognize Jessica first, and then I'll go to Alex. Did you have a comment?
I just had a question. If the funds are provided by the EDA, will the current property owners be required to help support the construction costs or not then?
As the project is envisioned, it would be constructed by the township using the EDA funds.
Okay.
Not for this work, we've not envisioned any private involvement.
Okay, thank you.
Alex?
So should there be a condition that, the EDA funds do pay for the sidewalk? I mean, everybody's to put in sidewalk with their project.
One thing I'll say is that I consider the EDA funding to be secondary. Really the principal reason for this, and the reason it was listed first in our report and in the recommended motions, is the MDOT requirement for offsite improvements, as we talked about just a moment ago with the previous project, where if they don't control the property, then we really don't have a way to require them to make an offsite improvement. In this case, the offsite improvement is basically requiring them to construct sidewalks on the other side of the intersection. These are corner lots, and so they're required. MDOT would require them to construct the part of the sidewalk that's on the other side of the street, the return, essentially, on the other side of the street. In one case, that return is not even in the township. And so we don't really have a way to compel them, the applicant, to do that work. The site plan only is connected to their property, and that's why it just didn't make sense to continue to push to have the property owners take care of these projects. The township can work with the city, can work with MDOT, and do this work ourselves. And we won't have the problems that the property owner would if they're trying to do it.
Other questions or comments? Motions on the floor. If not,
To Alex's point, though, we're only, the motion is only to provide relief again. If for some reason the EDA doesn't come through and this isn't funded, I mean, there's nothing prohibiting us from raising the issue in the future if we want sidewalks paid for by individual property owners or business owners, that sort of thing. So, I guess I don't see the need for any additional condition on that part.
Yeah, I agree with that take there.
all right. Others? So go ahead and poll us, please.
Buckley,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Yes.
Squattrito, Lap,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Cody,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
and Darren.
Yes.
That motion passes 8-0.
Okay, thank you. All right. So those were our new business items. Under other business, we have the master plan implementation discussion. I'm going to just give my own opinion, which is that given the time, unless someone has something really urgent that they want to bring up at this point, I would, I don't know, politely suggest that maybe we defer that to another meeting. What's your pleasure?
I would concur.
I agree.
Any objection? All right, so we'll put that back in the mayonnaise jar for another month. Extended public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the planning commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. If you want to address the planning commission on any item, just again, activate your, I'm speaking to no one here, he left, but activate your raise hand button. We'll recognize you. Give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comments open at 9:52. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. Next item is final board comment. Any comments from board members? Ryan?
I'm just curious if there's a need. I guess I'm making a comment. I guess I'm posing a question too, but I'm curious, given the unique applications that we had come up in terms of a lessee owning or having a business and the sidewalk requirement there, is there, should we have some additional conversation, or the sidewalk committee have some conversation about how we might have handled that in the future should those issues arise again? I guess I'm just putting that out there for conversation if need be.
Yeah, I would agree, because I think every corner lot on M20 or a state highway is going to require sidewalk ramps on the opposite side of the road. They're not going to make you let you put a sidewalk in and dump people into an intersection they can't get out of. That is going to be a requirement at every location like that. And it's not unreasonable to have people walk down the sidewalk and yet be able to give them some place to go after that. So I don't think it's unreasonable.
Well, those are two separate issues. That was one issue. And then the other issue was what happens when the main business owner is just renting out a small portion of their property and the applicant is the franchisee and so on. So, well, do you think, Rodney and Peter, do you think those things are things that are worth you guys looking into?
Well, actually, you have set up at the request of the sidewalk committee to have a joint meeting with them at your next meeting. The intent was to have that at the beginning of the meeting. And so I think it's certainly an item to bring to their attention. And I think the sidewalk ordinance is, we've updated a number of ordinances over the course of this year for the township, and zoning ordinance being a big one, but we've done some other ones as well. And I think the sidewalk ordinance is sort of on the list to look at. And one of the things I would like to do is to incorporate some of the policy that we have into the ordinance. So it's no longer policy, but we actually have some direction given in the ordinance as to how these sidewalks will be handled, and providing some additional flexibility along the lines we've been talking about. So I think it's definitely a good topic and a good time to have that conversation with the committee.
All right. And I know our representative to that august group, assuming he doesn't get swallowed up by the sunflowers, will communicate that to them as well.
Yeah, I made note of those 2 points, and I'll try and remind us all at the joint meeting that we have these questions. So,
okay, very good. So our next meeting will be the 3rd Tuesday in January, which I don't know what that date is, but it'll be one of these, and we'll have the folks from Sidewalks and Pathways. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Well, we've completed our agenda, so thanks for another successful year. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone on the other side in 2021.
Thanks. Happy
Merry
holidays.
Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
Good night.
Bye.